All right, guys, let's begin with prayer, and then I'll explain a couple of things to you. Let us pray. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we love you, and we thank you for this opportunity to study your word. I ask that you help me to explain it concisely and clearly, and that those that are here to be illuminated and grow in the Spirit, Lord, and we can just have a better understanding of your purpose and your plan through the history of how you've worked through your people in the past. Jesus, we you everything. Just help me, Holy Spirit, to be supernaturally empowered to explain this in a concise way. Those that are here to be illuminated understand it, Lord, and let us put forth the effort. You deserve, Jesus. You be the glory master. For your name we pray. Amen. All right, we are on Acts 25, which means we are going back into a lot of history and a lot of the judicial trials. And I think it's funny because, one thing I do is I study the art of teaching and preaching and sermons. And I've actually seen this right here probably become the most butchered section of trying to do your typical three-point homiletics I've ever seen before. And one guy came out and said, he goes, "You can't do it. It's impossible." And I was like, "Thank you. Somebody finally understands that. You just have to teach it." And the fact of the matter is, even when you teach it, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be repeating a lot of things. And not only going to be repeating a lot of things, you're going to be using a lot of legal technology, Roman legal technology. You're going to need a lot of Roman history. So if you're really not a student of the Bible, this will be really boring for you. And given that we're coming off Vacation Bible School, and given that I know a lot of you are tired, and given that this is the section that I've just heard some people butcher, I don't expect you as non-teachers to not be able to get it. Just naturally get it. So what I'll do is I'll just try to make it short. And that's the best way I'm going to do it. Because what's going to happen is it's going to be just repeating a lot of things, and there's a reason for this. And one of the reasons is, and this is one of my own theories I've been writing about, everyone can't figure out why does it get so boring right now. Well, I was listening to Dominic Smart, and he gave me the idea, probably unintentionally, but he's a pastor I like over in London, and he says, imagine if you're Paul and you've been traveling around in the mission field, you've been free, and you've been going and spreading the gospel, and you've been teaching, and it's been exciting, and you've seen miracles, and you've seen people come to Christ, and one day after another is just an adventure, and all of a sudden now you're stuck. What's life going to be like? Slow, redundant, dreadful, depressing, boring, and I think Luke slows down to highlight this. He even says at the very last point in 24, Paul is left in prison. Just kind of if you're a guy that's always on the go, do you want to be locked in a room? And this is kind of like how it's looking for him, because remember, he's been promised by Jesus in a vision that he's going to go to Rome. Well, now he's been in prison for 2 years. This is going a lot slower than thought. And quite frankly, this is how God works very often. He'll give you a word, and then it's been a couple months, even more months, even more months. Hey, we got a year. We got a year and a few months. We got a year and a half. We're going on our second Christmas. It's been 2 years and nothing. I'm farther away than ever before. As a matter of fact, I'm just going in cycles, repeating the exact same verdict and the exact same charges against me just over and over again. You're going to see pretty much the exact same charges again today. And this is going to be 2 years after the fact. So what it's going to let you see is, even after all these changes I'm about to show you, one thing that didn't change, the Jewish leadership hated Paul. 2 years of him rotting in a prison in Caesarea, and their hatred and hostility hasn't regressed one bit. He is enemy number one for them, and the one thing they want more than anything is what? His death. And they will not rest until they get it. We will see this today. All right? Now, yeah, well, exactly. There you go. There you go. Now, what we're seeing here, we're going to see a lot of historical changes going on. And one of the reasons this is going to let you kind of peek into this is, the fact of the matter is, think of how much going on in your life for 2 years. You've had a lot happen in 2 years. And a lot of changes happen. Well, nothing's changed for Paul. But even on the scene of history, we're going to see a lot of changes here. We're going to have a new governor. We're going to move from Felix to Festus. For some reason, every teacher in the world, as they're talking, confuse Felix and Festus' name. Maybe I will. I don't seem to have a problem with it, but maybe I will. If I do, don't confuse me. We are going to be on Festus. Okay? We'll talk more about him in a minute. He's going to take office in 5980 or 80, 59 technically 5980, the way you guys like it said. This is when he'll take office. I'll explain more about him in a minute. He's going to come across as a much more diplomatic. He seems to want justice, but I'm not so sure about that. We'll look at him more in a minute, okay? We are going to have Paul at this point, who's been in prison for 2 years in Caesarea. Remember, this is like Montgomery. This is the capital area of that province. So he's going from, although Jerusalem, you run it in Jerusalem, the technical legal center and political center is going to be Caesarea Maritima. This is where he is going to be. He's going to be there 2 years. Paul is roughly in his late 50s, probably around 60 right about now. Just to give you an idea, he's about a 60-year-old man right about now, okay? We've had a change in Jewish high priests. We have a new high priest. Who was the old high priest? Ananias. Who's the new high priest? A guy named Ishmael. All right? Now here's the deal. Once Ishmael gets appointed, there's a schism in the Jewish leadership. That one historical source says leads to violence, which means they got rowdy and rioty and opposed each other. You had these Jewish groups opposing each other. So they're at a point in time, they've got legitimate hatred for each other. There's only one thing that can bring them together. And what is that? Their hatred for Paul and the Christian movement. So they're actually in a schism point in their life. But hey, they got a hatred for Paul and Christianity. Let's come together, exit out, put our differences aside, we'll fight later. Okay? So you got that going on with the new high priest Ishmael in office. And then we're going to meet, not today, but next week. I need to introduce him to you. Agrippa II, who we've seen kind of so far, and his sister Bernice. Agrippa II is going to be the king, the client king of Rome over this area, not particularly Judea, but the northern thing. He's going to be Rome's expert on Jewish matters. He knows how to play. To me, he's probably one of the greatest politicians we've seen so far, because he acts like a true Jew when he's with the Jews, and they seem to kind of like him, but the Romans loved him. So much so that after the Jews went to war with the Romans, he got to keep his office as king. Nobody does that. But he did, because he just knew how to play the fence this way. He's going to be the only surviving son of Agrippa I, the guy that was killed in Acts 12. Okay? We've met one of his siblings already. His youngest daughter was who literally, his history says this, the beautiful teenager. Okay? Drusilla. And remember, Drusilla was then evidently married to Felix. Felix stole her away from the first husband. And remember, the first husband, remember first she was first engaged to a man, and everybody's like, yeah, she's so beautiful, that's great. And the deal was you got to be circumcised to marry her, and then okay, fine. And they get to the act itself, and the guy goes, no, I'm not going to do it. He backs out. Well, then this next guy does it, and he goes through the circumcision, and then a short time later, within a couple years, she meets Felix, which means happy, and Felix plays on that, and he goes, I'll make you happy, playing off his name. And he steals her away. And so they go off, they get married. She's about 19 years old at this time. And that was the last person that Paul stood in front of, was Drusilla and Felix. Well, her older siblings at this point in time are Agrippa II, who's 32, and Bernice, her older sister, who is 31. Now, not only was Agrippa very, 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 very diplomatic and knew how to play the fence of politics, but remember there was that big rumor about him and Bernice. What was that big rumor going on? They were what? Having an incestuous relationship. Okay? That was the big rumor. And Bernice is an interesting, tragic character. If they were doing it or not, I don't know. But, some Josephus thinks they were. Other sources think they were. Some modern sources say, no, that's just Roman gossip. They were really close, though. And Agrippa never gets married, never has any kids. And that's kind of weird for a Jewish king at that point in time. Okay? So, to me, that either means maybe he was... How do we put this? Yeah, okay, there we go. Either he had an incestuous love for his sister, or maybe he swung both ways. I don't know what else to say at that, because something's not quite right there. That's all I can say about this guy, although it's politically genius. But Bernice was a tragic story. She initially, once her father died, she was a teenager, and everybody that didn't like her father came in and abused her. We'll just put it that way, okay? And so then she goes and she gets married off. It doesn't work out. She first marries her uncle. Well, that's always good. Yeah, she marries her uncle, another hair, okay? That don't work out, all right? So then when rumors about her and her brother hooking up come out, she goes and marries this other king who's over the territory where Paul's born. Just know that, okay? Well, things don't work out with them either. She goes back to her brother again. Well, then she becomes the mistress of 2 Roman generals, okay? And she apparently is doing something out of that, because she's got 2 Roman generals. One of them is Titus. Titus will destroy Jerusalem. Now, inevitably, Titus becomes emperor. And he promised her, if I ever become emperor, you're going to be my wife. So he becomes emperor. And she's on her way to Rome to become the emperor's wife. Finally, things have turned in her favor. Finally, things are going right because they were in love. And she knew they were in love. Well, his political advisor says, don't you dare marry a Jew. This will destroy you. So she's going her own. She knocks on the doors. I'm here to get married. They don't let her in. They turn her away and she gets sent away. So this is the tragedy story of Bernice. We'll see her later on. She is going to be the sister queen of Agrippa II. They will play a huge part later on, particularly because, remember, you know how every country's got your expert on some other country, or expert on, your allies or even enemies? Remember, Agrippa II is Rome's expert on Jewish matters. He is going to be huge here later on. We will get to him, okay? But first we got Festus. Now Festus is going to rule. His name is Porcius Festus. He's going to take office. Nero deposes Felix. Nero's emperor at this point in time. Anybody know anything about Nero? Before we get into Festus.
Nero?
Yeah.
He burned everybody.
Very good. Very good. Very good. I've talked about Nero before. The Antichrist in Revelation 13, if you take 666, it can mean a couple things. One of the things it likely means is new Nero. Because what Nero did was, he slaughtered Christians. Nero will inevitably kill Peter and Paul. He is going to be one of your Antichrist figures. Him and Antiochus are your two biggest Antichrist figures that become symbols for the actual Antichrist. Okay? Well, it just so happens his first 5 years, he's actually really good. He's got these philosophical teachers that keep him in line. He does diplomatic things. He runs well. He's thought of very well. And then he loses his teachers. And he goes off the deep end after this.
Something clicks.
Yeah, something clicks and he loses it. Which this happens to a lot of those Roman emperors. I mean, either they're deifying their horse or sleeping with their mother or doing something. I think something happened with Nero's mom, actually. And that's what happened with that because there were rumors that Nero's mom had something going on. But we'll get into all that later. But for now, just know this. We're going to get back into Porcius Festus. I told you a lot of history. You got to know this. A lot of changes going on. This is going to set the tone for all this stuff. We're to Porcius Festus, who takes office in AD 59, and he only has office till about 62. Now, he was well liked. Really, really well liked. Even by the Jews. Josephus writes a good thing about him. Unfortunately, he dies. Just dies. He all of a sudden dies. Okay? And he has this premature death. And it's just unfortunate because he actually was a good go-between between the Jews and the Romans. And Josephus, who talks bad about everybody with the Roman leaders, at least the Roman leaders over the Jews, calls him an honorable and capable leader who was facing insurmountable odds. He had a lot of problems going on, and he handled them well. Two of the big ones was, you guys remember the Sicarii? Who are the Sicarii? Dagger men. What would they do? They were the terrorists. They were the Al-Qaeda of the day. Okay? And what the Sicarii was doing, they were trying to get attention at this point. They were getting something done. They were going to the countryside. They were burning villages and plundering villages. Okay? He suppressed that. He was somehow going to suppress that. Felix gave Felix a bribe. He got out of it. But he suppressed that. And then the Jewish leaders inevitably build this high wall that blocks the Fortress Antonia from looking down into certain points in the temple. And instead of acting like his predecessors, going in there with a big gun and tank and run everybody over, he handles it diplomatically. He doesn't have a hissy about it, and he handles it the right way, according to Josephus. Okay, so he was honorable and capable. Which, if Josephus says that about a Roman governor over Judea, then something's different about this man. Now, I will say this: although a lot of people talk about his love for Roman justice, I get that. He is still a Roman politician, which means he's got one priority and one priority only. And that is to keep the peace and to keep his head. I guess that's two. And so that's what he wants to do. He wants to keep the peace and keep his head. And so that means he is not above political favors. All Roman people did that. So this is all going to be part of it here. So go ahead and turn to Acts 25, 1 through 3. And we are on Festus. We've just moved from Felix. We've got the new governor, Festus. Remember, he's taken over. He's an outsider coming in. And remember, his area is going to be Judea. And if you need help maintaining peace and security in Judea, you got to have one thing, because peace in the Middle East is hard to come by, and you got to have one thing, and that is the insiders on your side. Now keep in mind, his predecessor Felix was kicked out from not handling the Jews correctly. Remember what Felix did? Sounds like a lot of history, but this is what we're talking about. It's going to be important. Remember Felix, he mishandles the Jews and the Greeks when they get in a fight. They get in a big street fight, the Jews win. He goes in there, he tells them to stand, they don't stand down. He slaughters all the Jews, and then he goes and plunders their houses just because he's got a big tank and he can do it. Okay? Well, this don't fly. Nero kicks him out of office. So mishandling the Jews will get you kicked out of office in Judea. So the first thing Festus has got to do is make sure he's going to handle these Jews correctly. Keep that in mind. Acts 25, 1 through 3. Who's going to read tonight? Who's our reader tonight? You want to read, Steve?
I guess it will. Right. Here won't.
It's only 12 verses tonight. Acts 25, 1 through 3. Go ahead and read that for us.
Now when Festus had come to the province, after 3 days he went up from Caesarea to Jerusalem. Then the high priest and the chief men of the Jews informed him against Paul, and they petitioned him, asking a favor against him that he would summon him to Jerusalem while they lay in ambush along the road to kill him.
All right, let me explain all this, and I'll explain it twice because this is going to be huge for our workshop, okay? Festus has taken office. Within 3 days, he takes a trip to Jerusalem. Why does it say he went up to Jerusalem?
Uphill.
Very good. Very good, because you always go uphill. It don't matter what direction you're going in, it's always up to Jerusalem because you're going uphill. So he goes from Montgomery to Birmingham. Let's just face it, Montgomery is the capital. Birmingham's the big city in Alabama, right? Okay, we can all agree on that. So he's going to go from Montgomery to Birmingham here, okay? You got to have that. And the chief priest, and the first thing he's going to do is go to the main leaders of this principal city that's highly volatile in his region. Remember, it's always riots, always potential for not keeping the peace, always potential for him losing his job based on this place. So the very first thing he does within 3 days of taking office is take a trip to the one place he's got to get under control. First, smart move, really smart move. And upon arrival, he goes to Jewish leaders, immediately goes to them, which is a sign of respect. Like you're the tribal chiefs, I expect you respect you tribal chiefs. I'm showing you that I need you in order for me to be effective. In order for me to maintain peace and order, I'm going to need your support. All right? Well, the Jewish leaders, which is going to be the high priestly circle, the new high priest and the old high priest, and everybody who was fighting with each other that made back up, the ruling elders and the lay aristocracy, the Sanhedrin type people, they're all going to go, well, we're going to take this opportunity. Got a new guy in here. He's going to need our help. The new guy comes in and goes, is there anything I can do to, make it easier for you guys? Yeah, there's something you can do. There's this pest named Paul, and we want him dead. And so that's what the first thing they say is, they can say anything. Yeah, we need some money for the temple. We need our roads fixed. We need some security walls. What do they say? There's a guy in prison who's been there 2 years who's a thorn in our side. He's been in prison for 2 years now. How is he still a thorn in their side? That just shows the vehement hatred and quite frankly, in my opinion, the demonic influence behind the Jewish authorities at this time. You don't hate somebody like this for this long when they're in jail. I mean, there's so many more things you could ask for at this point. So they're not over it. So what they do is, they present evidence right away against this Paul guy to this new governor. And they present it, they give a formal report with legal charges against Paul right away. And then they repeatedly, over and over again, implore the governor to take their side on the case. That's all they talk about. This Paul guy, he's done this, take our side on this case. They then request a political favor, which is a sign of goodwill. Listen, we will help you out if you extradite this Paul guy from Caesarea Jerusalem. Okay? But what are they planning for this trip? We've already seen this once. This is part 2. What are they going to try to do this time? Ambush. Now last time it was 40 terrorists that tried it or planned it. This time it could still be the 40 terrorists, but it's the Jewish leaders who planned it. So they're planning an ambush. They want to physically eliminate him. They're not even going to do a sham trial. It's extrajudicial measures. We're going to kill this guy on that road from Caesarea, Jerusalem somewhere, and we're going to finish what we started 2 years earlier. Okay? So you must have all this down before we move on, because this is going to be huge. Okay? They request what? Extradition of Paul from where? Keep this in mind. Caesarea to Jerusalem. Okay? They're exploiting the new governor who would often grant a political favor when taking office. Why would a new governor do that?
Grease the wheels.
Yes, this is something you did. It made sense. It was not unheard of. Okay? In return, what will they give this new leader? We will be your tribal chiefs who help you maintain peace and security in the most volatile region under your administration. The one thing you've admitted you need us for, we'll give you. Just give us Paul. So that's what they're saying at this point in time, okay? At this point, it's not a bad strategy because Festus has political interest in the situation. I mean, this seems like it could help him. In reality, there's a planned assassination attempt to take Paul's life in the prison transfer. To me, there's only one way possible that this happens this way, and that's that God had his hand on it. Now the text doesn't say it, but the reason I say that is, I think in Festus's mind, first let's see what happens, I'll explain this. Read 4 and 5 for us.
But Festus answered that Paul should be kept at Caesarea, and that he himself was going there shortly. Therefore, he said, let those who have authority among you go down with me and accuse this man to see if there's any fault in him.
Okay, that's good. Now, so what does he do? He denies the request. That doesn't help him out at all. The only reason, one, it's got to be God. I'm sorry, it's got to be, that's got to be there, because once he gets down there, he's automatically trying to give him that favor once he gets down there. He just doesn't do it here. Okay, and the reason what I think happens here is his ego doesn't want to appear weak. He doesn't want to appear to give in right away. I think he plans on giving in all along, but he's going to give in on his terms. He wants their favor, and he'll give them that favor. But as any Roman governor is going to be, it's going to be whose terms? His terms. And I think if this is the reason why he does it, God plays on that, this saves Paul's life. This will be huge. Because if Paul would have been transferred at that time, what would happen to Paul? He'd have been assassinated on the road. So there has to be divine intervention there, okay? Now the reason he gives is he appeals to Roman law, saying during a criminal trial, here's the deal, you can't make a decision about a legal case without all parties present, which was true. Roman law required that. But who's going to report him if he breaks Roman law to get this favor? See what I'm saying? It's not like the Jews are going to report him, and Paul's going to be dead. So who's actually going to report him if he breaks the law here? Nobody. But he's still, for some reason, magically, but we know miraculously, decides, no, we're going to have it here, despite everything else about it, okay? But what it says him is you can appoint a delegation. We can have your trial, but it's going to be in Caesarea. But then I'm going to make clear to you, one reason I also think he don't want to appear weak, how this is worded in the Greek, he goes, I want to make this clear. Only allegations with proper reasons will be admitted. So make sure this is what you want. Make sure this is the case you want to have, because I'm not going to admit any garbage. This better be straightforward, pure reason that makes sense to me. Don't come out with any garbage. I'm not going to admit it. He's showing a strong hand right here. And I think that's because he's new and doesn't want to come across as a pushover. But
He's got to stand up and show his authority.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to do it my way, guys.
Yeah, well, like I said, because as soon as we get down there, we'll get to verse 9, he's going to ask Paul, do you want to take this to Jerusalem? And Luke makes clear, he's asking this to do that favor they requested here. So he's going to do that favor later, and be willing to do it, just not right here. But that's going to save Paul's life. Now we're getting to the trial itself. This is going to be important because this is how Paul is going to ultimately get to Rome. This is going to be huge. How Paul gets to Rome is what God has planned. He's got a ministry there. He's got to get there. He's got stuff to do there. God's already said you're going to go there. Go and read verse 6 through 7.
And when he had remained among them more than 10 days, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day, sitting on the judgment seat, he commanded Paul to be brought. When he had come, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood about and laid many serious complaints against Paul, which they could not prove. Okay,
very good. Okay, now verse 6, first thing we got, Festus is going to stay in Jerusalem. Notice Luke is not specific. He says 8 to 10 days, basically a little over a week. You know why he does that? Because he didn't know. And he's not going to give you information he's not sure about. He's letting you know what I don't know, I'll let you know I don't know. So I'm not sure, but roughly a week is what he's saying here, okay? What Festus is going to do, he's going to learn as much as he can about the religious institution, which is not going to be very much. And he's more than likely going to scope the security of the city. And he's going to kind of get a feel for what he needs to, where he needs to put guards, what he needs to do to, basically for his own job is what he's doing. He's doing his job for peace and maintaining the peace here, okay? Then he goes back to Caesarea. What is the very first thing he does when he gets back?
Sitting on the judgment seat.
Very first thing he does is this Paul case. So he's brand new governor. Biggest thing right now he's got is the Paul case. Okay? Right on his mind right here. And then in verse 7, the trial begins. We have this is pictured the Jewish leaders, the accusation of the Jewish leaders. They're surrounding Paul. It's like an intimidating, confrontational, dangerous situation around Paul. And they're bringing serious charges. Now, it doesn't specify the charges, but more than likely, based on what Paul says in verse 8, and based on what we know in Acts 24, it's probably similar charges. There may be one alteration we'll see next week. We'll look at this. But what were the three big charges last time? What were the three big charges they tried to bring against him?
One was...
it He's a what? Public enemy number one. He is a danger and threat to the welfare of society. If you allow this man to maintain freedom in society, he will destroy peace and order. He's public enemy number one. Number two, he is what? The ringleader of an heretical sect, a rebellious sect. People that don't keep the laws. Right. Not only that, this sect follows a man who was killed for treason himself. Who was the man killed for treason himself? Jesus. So he's doing that. He's got that. And then they accuse him of attempting to desecrate the temple. Temple desecration was outlawed not only by the Jews, but by Rome as well. Keep all that in mind, okay? All this being said, these are serious charges. They're over and over again trying to prove. The Greek text here means they continually put forth the efforts to prove these charges against Paul, but they were unsuccessful, which probably means they were just totally unorganized and too emotional. And every time they tried to make it appear like Roman law, it came across like a religious issue. Because this is what happens when you get really emotional about something. You lose your composure and you begin to battle and not make sense. And very often when you're high-strung and emotional, you kind of show what you're really upset about. And so I think with that many people feeling this way, and this much hatred towards Paul, inevitably what happens is they're going to inevitably show this is a religious matter, and it's not something that has to do with Roman law that Festus needs to be seeing. This will come out a little later. Now we got Paul's response in verse 8. Go ahead and read verse 8 for us.
Okay, well, I'm going to back up a little bit so it sounds a little bit.
Sure, whatever you feel sounds good.
Correct. Laid many serious complaints against Paul, which they could not prove, while he answered for himself. Neither against the laws of the Jews, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar have I offended in anything at all.
Now we have seen this before. Haven't we? Isn't this like the broken, redundant record we've watched several times now? Is this not the same thing that comes up every trial? There is one new charge in here. One. And technically it kind of goes back to the old charges. But only one. What is the one new charge that at least word-wise is new?
Against the law of the Jews.
No, that's been in there. Last phrase. Against Caesar.
Oh.
They actually somehow make it about Caesar. There's theories on how this works, okay? What he first says is, no, man, I ain't violated the Mosaic law. I've not abandoned the Torah, nor have I taught any other Jew to abandon the Torah. I view it in a new light through Jesus Christ, because that's what it's all about. We'll see later in the speech, but I have not told him to abandon it. I've just told him to view it correctly. Like you do this day. We taught Exodus Sunday morning. We have not abandoned the Torah. We just view it through the lens of Jesus Christ. And this is what he is saying right here. He's committed no offense against the temple. Same thing. I ain't desecrated the temple. I went there to worship peacefully. You know, if anybody did, it was them. Okay? And then this, he has committed no offense against the emperor. Who's the emperor now? Caesar. And Caesar is who? What's his name? Nero. So I haven't done anything against Nero at this point. I didn't commit treason, which could be about three things. It could be saying I didn't plan any riots. It could be saying, I'm not the ringleader of a rebellious sect. Or it could be saying, here's another suggestion is that they were trying to say that he is proclaiming another king. Who would be the other king that he'd be proclaiming? Jesus. So he'd be saying, I'm not proclaiming a political king. I'm proclaiming the true king, the heavenly king. So he'd be saying that right there. He'd be breaking one way or another. He's saying, I haven't. This is not political. I'm not guilty of charges of sedition. I have not committed treason. I don't plan any armed revolts. And I'm a loyal citizen of the state, although I worship Jesus Christ first and foremost. This is religious, not political. It goes back to that same route again. All right, verse 9 through 11.
But Festus wanted to do the Jews a favor, answered Paul and said, are you willing to go up to Jerusalem and be there be judged before me concerning these things? So Paul said, I stand at Caesar's judgment seat, where I ought to be judged. To the Jews I have done no wrong, as you very well know. For if I am an offender or have committed anything deserving of death, I do not object to dying. But if there is nothing in these things of which these men accuse me of, no one can deliver me to them. I appeal to Caesar.
Oh, I got a bunch of cool stuff in this one here, okay? First off, look at verse 9. Festus wishing to do what? Favor. Remember what I said earlier? He's going to do this favor, but it's going to be his terms. It's got to be divine intervention that stopped from last time. But what you got here is Festus responds to both sides and he goes, hey, I got a suggestion. Let's relocate the judicial proceedings to Jerusalem. Okay? And he's wishing this as a favor because, quite frankly, he's going to say this a little later, I'm not a Jewish theologian and all this stuff confuses me. But one thing is clear, I need the Jewish leaders on my side because I need to maintain peace and security. And I don't know this Paul guy. He don't mean nothing to me. But I need to get this favor done for them on my terms. So I got an idea. Let's relocate the judicial proceedings to Jerusalem. Okay? Which we don't know. Does he plan on having a Sanhedrin trial again? Does he plan on overseeing the fortress of Antonia again? We don't really know. But regardless, as a Roman citizen and being in Roman's jurisdiction, it is best at this point if he gets Paul's permission. Okay? It's best. Because if he doesn't get Paul's permission, and then he gets sent and gets killed still, then this could come back on him slightly. So it's just going on. Okay, Paul, we've already got this legal case in front of you at this point in time. How about you take it this way, is what he says to him. Because he has no reason to think Paul would say no. But at this point, Paul refuses. And he doesn't trust the situation at all. Have you ever had the feeling something just wasn't quite right? Now, I tell my students, I tell my wife, I tell a lot of people, just because you get that feeling, don't always listen to it. But if it ever has to do with something dangerous, it don't matter if it's right, listen to it. And what Paul had was, something ain't right. Right? Now we can use that sometimes to judge people we're not sure about. Don't do it that way. But if you're going into a dangerous situation, you don't look right, it don't matter if you're right or not, don't do it. And this is what Paul thinks. Yes.
He remembers how he left Jerusalem.
That's what, yeah.
470?
Yeah, a lot of soldiers. Yeah, because they were trying to kill him. He remembers the ambush plot. He remembers the riots. He remembers the beatdown. He remembers all that. He knows he's public enemy number one. He knows all that. And it's all on his mind. And because of this, something just doesn't seem right. And he begins to suspect that Festus is not nearly as much concerned with justice as he is with political favors. So at this point, he's beginning to suspect it. And he's just, I don't trust this. And he's got that feeling of, this situation looks too dangerous to trust. And if it ever looks that way, listen. Okay, we'll be done after this. We're almost done here. So what he says in verse 10 through 11, because no, I'm not going to do that. Don't want that relocation. I'm going to be tried in a Roman court. The court that's represented by the Roman emperor, where I should be tried. Okay? I haven't violated any Jewish law, or Roman law for that matter. And Festus, you know I've done nothing deserving conviction, and nothing worthy of being handed over to Jewish jurisdiction at least. But if I have violated Jewish law, okay, if the charges against me are valid and provable, then I'm willing to face the death sentence and be executed. If this guilt can be proven. What he said, I'm not scared to die. If you prove these charges, I'll die. There's one catch though. You got to prove these charges. Because I'm not going to die for charges I didn't do that you can't prove. This is what he's saying right here. If you can't prove the charges against me, then you can't hand me over. I'm not going to die for something I didn't do that you can't prove. But what I will do is, I'm going to appeal to Caesar. Okay? What this means is, he's invoking a Roman citizen legal right at this point that is going to transfer him from the jurisdiction of the governor of Judea and from any jurisdiction of the Jews. Which is his way of saying, I don't want you guys or you anymore to be a part of this. I'm invoking my legal right. What he does. He invokes his legal right. Now, this appeal to Caesar means you're making a request to the imperial court. Now, how all this works out, it's a little debated. Maybe next week we'll go over it more. Just know that it was heard of at that point in time. We will get into the details more next week. But if you did this, who had to pay for it? You did.
Yeah.
You did. It was expensive too. So you had to pay for it. You had to pay for the transportation and everybody that went with you, the room and board, the food. You had to pay for all of that. So he had to pay for everything to do this right here. And we don't really know why he waited so long, but a lot of people would seem to think that he thought he was going to get out anyway. He did nothing wrong, but it just didn't work. At this point, he knew his life was in danger, okay? Well, this is going to lead to verse 12. Go and read verse 12. We'll be done.
Then Festus, when he had conferred with the council, answered, You have appealed to Caesar. To Caesar you shall go.
So Festus can actually deny this, by the way. He's got the right. There's a list of exceptions. You can reject the appeal based on legal status of the defendant, based on certain notification, based on certain formal errors, based on certain non-observance of deadlines. But he goes and he talks with his council. This is going to be about 8 to 20 local Roman citizens, military men, and civil servants who are advisory. and they're going to go where they got three options, okay? These are pretty much the same three options we've had every other time, but he's got three options, okay? He can release Paul, because he knows he ain't done nothing guilty of the death sentence, but if he releases him, what's going to happen?
You're going to get killed.
Well, not only that, but what's going to happen to this, what's in Jerusalem? Riots. He's going to, and what's the main job of a Roman governor? Maintain peace and order. But he's not going to get any peace and order if he releases Paul in those volatile region under his administration. So we can't do that. That works that out. Well, if we execute Paul at this point, and this gets back one way or another, if I personally execute him, maybe it could come back on me, so I don't want to do that either. Why do I even want to put myself in this situation when this guy just made an appeal and I get myself off scot-free? Go ahead and go. Easiest way. Yeah, that's it. It gets him out of a difficult situation. I mean, this guy's been in jail for 2 years here. No one can figure anything out. I'm not a Jewish theologian. This makes no sense. And I don't want to upset the Jews because I don't want riots. I don't want to, in any way possible upset Rome. Maybe they come back on me at this point. All this is difficult, so I know what I'll do. I'll give what you want. You appealed, there you go. There you go. Okay? And at this point, what this does, it stops the current trial and effectively removes Paul from the sphere of influence of any Jewish authorities or even the governor himself at this point. Now we're going to see this is going to pick back up when Agrippa and Bernice get there. This is going to be huge what happens. Because all this is working towards Paul giving one huge missionary, evangelistic, preaching sermon to the king of the Jews at this point in time, Agrippa. It's going to be kind of neat how this works out, okay? That's what we're working towards. But in the meantime, the trial stops. You want to go to Caesar? To Caesar you will go. But there's one problem. You've got to have a letter written, remember, that explains the situation, that explains the charges, that explains why you're sending them. And you're not just writing to your boss on this one, you're writing to the emperor. So what does he need at this point in time? A really good letter written. And he's got to make sure it's really good, because the person you don't want to upset the most in the Roman Empire is Caesar. So he's got to make sure this letter is good. So everything we're about to see is going to be all about the letter he's got to write, because one thing's for certain, this whole thing confuses him, because they didn't teach this at law school. Jewish theology was not part of your Roman law class. And this throws a loop in his understanding. Okay? That's where we'll stop, and we'll pick back up next time. Do you have any questions?
Well, you keep saying, do you think that all the Jews was against Paul, or just this small?
Now here's the deal.
Here's
the deal. Luke uses all the Jews, but all that matters is the Jewish authorities, those that represent it. Do I think all the Jews know? Because some Jews are Christian.
Yeah.
But Luke words it like all the Jews are, because all that matters is those who represent all the Jews.
Yeah.
And who represents all the Jews are the high priestly circle, the lay aristocracy, the Sanhedrin members. They're the ones that matter really anyway. And remember, there are Jewish Christians. And they didn't like Paul either, remember? Because they thought, they were still kind of law-observant themselves. So he wasn't popular with anybody in Jerusalem, put it that way. Maybe except for James and the Jerusalem church. But yeah, some Jews liked him, but Luke is intentionally using all the Jews, because what he's saying is those who represent all the Jews have rejected Christianity. And that's what he's getting at with that right there. So, very good question. Anything else? Anything else? All right, nothing else. Let's stop this and we'll go to prayer.